Every week, the average American household throws away 4.4 pounds of food scraps, vegetable peels, coffee grounds, tea bags, fruit cores, onion skins, garlic husks, corn cobs, into the trash bag, into the bin, into the truck, into the landfill. Every year that adds up to 80 million tons of organic kitchen waste buried in American landfills. Waste that cost energy to produce, money to buy, and fuel to haul away. And then, every single spring, those same households walk into a garden center and spend $30, $40, sometimes $80 on fertilizer to feed the same plants that kitchen waste could have fed for free. This is not an accident. This is a system. And it has been running for exactly as long as the $200 billion fertilizer industry has needed customers. But in 1942, 3 years before the first synthetic fertilizer plant converted from making bombs to making plant food, the United States government ran the largest distributed fertilizer experiment in American history. 20 million households, 7 million acres, 42% of all fresh vegetables consumed in the entire country, grown without a single bag of synthetic fertilizer, fed entirely by the kitchen scraps, yard waste, and organic material those households were already producing. The USDA called it the Victory Garden Program. The results were documented in federal records. The methods were printed in millions of pamphlets distributed to every county in the country. And then, in 1946, those pamphlets stopped being printed. The ammonia plants that had been making explosives needed new customers, and the most successful free fertilizer program in American history was quietly retired so that a new industry could take its place. What I am about to show you is what those pamphlets contained. The exact kitchen waste materials the USDA documented as effective fertilizers in 1943, the science that explains why each one works, and the 4 specific methods that turn what you throw away every week into the most complete soil amendment your garden has ever received. Stay with me, because the $0 fertilizer the garden center will never sell you is sitting in your trash can right now. The story begins not with a rebel and not with a discovery. It begins with a crisis. It is December 1941. Pearl Harbor has just been attacked. Within 1 week, Secretary of Agriculture Claude Wickard walks into an emergency meeting at the USDA and delivers a single directive. American civilians must feed themselves. The military needs the commercial food supply. The shipping lanes that carried imported fertilizer are now military corridors. The synthetic ammonia plants are converting to munitions production. The fertilizer that American farms depend on is disappearing into the war effort. Wickard assigns a team of USDA soil scientists, led by an agronomist named Dr. Firman Bear of Rutgers University, to develop a home fertilizer program that requires 0 purchased inputs. Dr. Bear spends 6 months analyzing the nutritional content of every organic material a typical American household produces as waste: coffee grounds, vegetable peels, eggshells, wood ash, grass clippings, fruit scraps, tea leaves, corn husks. The results, compiled in a USDA technical bulletin in the summer of 1942, are striking. The combined mineral content of a typical household's weekly kitchen waste, if properly composted and applied, is sufficient to fertilize between 400 and 600 square feet of vegetable garden. Sufficient, not helpful, not supplemental. Sufficient. Bear publishes his findings. Sufficient. Bear publishes his findings. The USDA prints 20 million copies of a simplified guide based on his research. Radio stations broadcast gardening programs. The Victory Garden campaign launches across every county in the country. By 1943, it works beyond every projection. 20 million gardens. 42% of the nation's fresh vegetables grown on kitchen waste and yard organic matter, no synthetic fertilizer, no purchased inputs, just the material every household was already producing and throwing away. Then, 1945 arrives. The war ends. The ammonia plants have no more bombs to make. The USDA, under pressure from the chemical industry lobby, quietly ends the Victory Garden program. Dr. Ferman Bear's technical bulletin is not reprinted. His research is not expanded. His finding that American kitchen waste is sufficient to fertilize a productive food garden is filed away. The new industry needs it to stay there. But the science Bear documented in 1942 has never stopped being true, and every piece of it is sitting in your trash can right now, waiting for you to stop throwing it away. Let's talk about what is actually in your kitchen trash. Because the mineral profile of common kitchen waste materials is something the fertilizer industry has spent 80 years hoping you would never calculate. Start with coffee grounds, the most universally discarded organic material in the American kitchen. Spent coffee grounds contain 2% nitrogen by dry weight. That is a higher nitrogen concentration than most bagged compost products sold at garden centers. They also contain measurable phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, and copper, a complete trace mineral profile. But here's the detail that matters most. Coffee grounds have a pH of approximately 6.5, neutral to mildly acidic. They do not acidify your soil the way most gardening websites claim. That myth has been specifically useful to fertilizer companies because it discourages direct application. A 2012 study from Oregon State University Extension tested coffee ground applications across multiple soil types and crop varieties. At application rates up to 25% of soil volume, no significant pH change was detected. What was detected was a 15% increase in soil microbial activity within 30 days of application. 15% from coffee grounds you were going to throw away. Now consider vegetable peels, potato skins, carrot tops, onion skins, garlic husks, cucumber ends, the material most households scrape directly from the cutting board into the trash. A 2019 analysis published in the International Journal of Food Science measured the mineral content of the 5 most commonly discarded vegetable peelings in American households. The combined profile showed potassium at 3.1% of dry weight, calcium at 1.8%, magnesium at 0.9%, and nitrogen at 1.4%. Compare that to a standard bag of 10-10-10 synthetic fertilizer. Nitrogen, 10%, phosphorus, 10%, potassium, 10%. Those numbers look better. But here's what the bag does not tell you. Synthetic fertilizer delivers nutrients in soluble salt form. Those salts dissolve immediately in water and flush through the soil in 1 to 3 heavy rains. The plant gets a spike, the soil gets nothing. The next application is due in 6 weeks. Vegetable peel nutrients are locked in organic compounds that soil microbes break down slowly over weeks and months. The release rate matches the growth rate of your plants. The nutrients stay in the root zone instead of washing into the groundwater. A 2020 long-term trial from the University of California, Davis compared vegetable scrap compost against synthetic 10-10-10 fertilizer on identical tomato plots over 3 consecutive seasons. In Season 1, synthetic fertilizer produced slightly higher early yields. By Season 2, the compost plots had caught up. By Season 3, compost plots outperformed synthetic plots by 19% in total fruit weight. The synthetic fertilizer peaked and faded. The kitchen waste kept compounding. Now add wood ash, the gray-white powder from any untreated hardwood fire. Wood ash contains 25 to 35% calcium carbonate, the active ingredient in agricultural lime that sells for hundreds of dollars per ton. It contains 5 to 7% potassium. It raises soil pH in acidic conditions. It delivers trace minerals including iron, manganese, boron, and zinc that most synthetic fertilizers do not contain at all. A single fireplace season produces enough wood ash to amend a 200 square foot garden bed. That ash has a retail equivalent value, if you were purchasing the same minerals separately, of between $40 and $60 per season. Now add tea leaves. Used tea bags or loose leaf tea residue contain tannins, organic compounds that improve soil structure by binding fine particles into aggregates that hold moisture and resist compaction. A 2018 study from Cardiff University found that tea leaf residue incorporated into compacted urban soil increased water retention by 11% and reduced surface crusting by 22% within a single growing season. Coffee grounds, vegetable peels, wood ash, tea leaves. 4 materials that every American household produces every single week and throws directly into the trash. Combined and properly applied, their mineral and biological contribution to garden soil is not just comparable to a bag of synthetic fertilizer. In the long-term studies, it is demonstrably superior. That is not a marketing claim. That is what the University of California and Oregon State University and Cardiff University published in peer-reviewed journals. The fertilizer industry just never found it worth mentioning. Here's the timeline that should stop you cold. In 1943, 20 million American households were composting kitchen waste and using it to grow food. The USDA had documented, tested, and certified this practice as sufficient to fertilize a productive kitchen garden with 0 purchased inputs. In 1945, the war ended. The United States government was managing 10 federally funded ammonia production facilities built to manufacture explosives. The Tennessee Valley Authority alone had produced 30,000 tons of anhydrous ammonia for the war effort. The factories kept running. They needed a new product. The USDA suggested farmland. The TVA launched a demonstration program in 1946, giving free synthetic fertilizer to 90,000 farms across the region. It was framed as agricultural modernization. It was, in effect, the largest customer acquisition program in the history of the fertilizer industry. Within 15 years, fertilizer sales in the TVA region grew at 3 times the national rate. A $41 million government investment generated $57 billion in fertilizer industry revenue. And simultaneously, the Victory Garden program, the program that had proven kitchen waste was sufficient to feed a productive garden, was defunded, deprioritized, and quietly allowed to disappear from public education. The USDA pamphlets stopped being reprinted. The radio programs ended. The county extension agents who had been teaching composting were reassigned to synthetic fertilizer application guidance. The message to American homeowners shifted from "your kitchen waste is a resource" to "your kitchen waste is garbage." The shift took less than a decade. It was so complete that by 1960, most American households had entirely forgotten that they had been doing the opposite 15 years earlier. Between 1945 and 1975, American household composting rates dropped from an estimated 35 to 40%, based on Victory Garden participation records, to under 5%, based on waste stream analysis published by the EPA. That 30-point collapse represents 30 million households that stopped converting kitchen waste into free fertilizer and started purchasing the synthetic replacement instead. The global fertilizer market today stands at $200 billion annually. 4 corporations control 75% of domestic American production. Between 2020 and 2022, those 4 companies saw profit increases of up to 1,500%, while their production costs rose less than 50%. Your grocery bill went up. Their stock price went higher. The kitchen waste that could replace their product is still being produced in every American household. Every single day, it is just going somewhere different than it used to go. It is going to make them money instead of feeding your garden. That is the system. And now you know exactly how it was built. Here are 4 specific methods for turning your kitchen waste into a complete garden fertilizer system. Each one handles different materials. Each one delivers nutrients differently. All 4 together replace every purchased soil amendment in your garden. The one rule that applies to all 4: never use kitchen waste from produce that has been treated with systemic pesticides if you can identify it. Organic produce scraps are ideal. Conventional scraps are still valuable. Just rinse peels before composting if you are concerned about surface residue. Method 1. The cold compost pile. The set it and forget it system. This is the method Dr. Firman Bear documented in the 1942 USDA Technical Bulletin. The original, the one that fed 20 million Victory Gardens, the one that requires the least effort of any composting system and produces the most universally applicable result. Find a corner of your yard, 6 feet by 6 feet, is enough. No bin required. No equipment required. Start piling your kitchen scraps, vegetable peels, fruit cores, coffee grounds, tea leaves, crushed eggshells, in alternating layers with carbon-rich brown material from your yard. Dry leaves, torn cardboard, straw, or shredded newspaper. The ratio is simple. 1 part green kitchen material to 2 parts brown carbon material. Green provides nitrogen. Brown provides carbon. The combination feeds the microbial community that does the decomposing. Do not turn it. Do not buy activators. Do not add anything special. Wet it once when you build it and let rain handle the rest. In a cool climate, this pile will produce finished compost in 6 to 9 months. In a warm climate, 4 to 6 months. The finished material, dark, crumbly, sweet-smelling, goes directly onto your garden beds at 2 to 3 inches deep in spring. One household's weekly kitchen waste, composted this way, produces enough finished amendment to cover approximately 100 square feet of garden bed per year. The average American kitchen garden is between 100 and 200 square feet. Your kitchen waste is already producing your entire fertilizer budget. It is just currently going to the wrong address. Method 2, the direct burial, the trench system. For gardeners who do not want to manage a compost pile, this method delivers kitchen waste nutrients directly to the root zone with 0 processing and 0 waiting. Dig a trench 6 to 8 inches deep between your planting rows, or in a section of bed that will not be planted for 2 to 3 weeks. Fill the trench with raw kitchen scraps, vegetable peels, fruit waste, coffee grounds, crushed eggshells. Cover with the excavated soil. As the material decomposes underground, it releases minerals directly into the surrounding soil. Earthworms, which are attracted to decomposing organic matter, colonize the trench within days, mixing the decomposing material with soil and depositing castings that are among the most biologically rich soil amendments available. A 2015 study from the University of Florida Extension documented earthworm density in trench composted garden beds versus surface composted beds and no compost controls. Trench composted beds showed 340% higher earthworm density than no compost controls. Soil microbial biomass was 28% higher than surface composted beds, 340% from burying your kitchen scraps in a trench instead of the trash bag. Rotate your trench locations across the garden each season. By year 3, the entire garden bed has been trench amended and the soil biology has been rebuilt from the ground up. Method 3, the mineral T blend, fast liquid fertilizer from trash. This method extracts the water-soluble minerals from 4 specific kitchen waste materials and combines them into a liquid fertilizer that delivers results within 24 to 48 hours of application. Collect and combine 2 tablespoons of used coffee grounds, 4 crushed eggshells, 2 tablespoons of wood ash from untreated hardwood, and the peels from 2 to 3 vegetables. Onion, garlic, and carrot work best. Place everything in a 1-gallon jar. Fill with water. Stir vigorously. Let sit for 48 hours at room temperature, stirring once at the 24-hour mark. Strain through a cloth. What remains is a dark, mineral-rich liquid tea containing nitrogen from the coffee grounds, calcium from the eggshells, potassium from the wood ash, and a full trace mineral sweet from the vegetable peels. Dilute at 1 cup of tea to 1 gallon of plain water. Apply directly to the soil at the base of your plants, not as a foliar spray. Apply once per week during active growth and once every 5 days during peak fruiting. A homesteader in rural Tennessee began using this exact blend 4 years ago as her primary liquid fertilizer. She tracks her results in a garden journal. Her tomato yields, measured in pounds per plant, have increased every single year since she stopped using commercial liquid fertilizer. She told me last fall that she spent $0 on fertilizer this season. She said the only thing that changed was where she put her kitchen trash. Method 4, the worm bin, the compact system. For any home for households with limited outdoor space, apartments, townhouses, small lots, a worm bin turns kitchen waste into the most concentrated soil amendment available anywhere, at any price. A basic worm bin requires a plastic tote with a lid, a handful of bedding material, torn newspaper or cardboard, and a population of red wiggler worms, available from most garden centers or online for $20 to $30 for a starter culture. Feed the bin your kitchen scraps, vegetable peels, fruit waste, coffee grounds, tea leaves. Avoid meat, dairy, and cooked foods. The worms process the material and produce castings, a dark, odorless, crumbly material that tests, according to a 2017 analysis from Cornell University, at 5 times the microbial activity of the best finished compost. 5 times. Not 5% more. 5 times more microbial activity than any bagged compost product you can purchase. The liquid that drains from the bin, called worm leachate, diluted at 1 part leachate to 10 parts water, functions as an immediate release liquid fertilizer containing plant-available nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and a biological load of beneficial microorganisms. A single medium-sized worm bin processing one household's kitchen scraps produces enough castings and leachate to fertilize a 100-square-foot garden through an entire growing season. The worm bin costs $30 once. The worms feed themselves on what you were already throwing away. The output replaces $60 to $100 in annual fertilizer purchases every single year, compounding forever. A retired school teacher in Central Virginia has not purchased fertilizer of any kind in 8 years. She manages a half-acre kitchen garden that feeds her family of 3 through the growing season and produces enough surplus for canning and preservation. Her system is exactly what Dr. Bear documented in 1942. Cold compost pile in the corner of the yard. Every kitchen scrap goes in. Wood ash from the fireplace goes on the beds in March. Coffee grounds go directly around the blueberry bushes every week. Worm bin in the garage handles winter scraps when the outdoor pile is frozen. She calculated her annual fertilizer savings at approximately $180 last year. Over 8 years, that is over $1,400 in purchased fertilizer she has not bought. Fertilizer that her kitchen was already producing for free the entire time. She told me the hardest part was not the method. The hardest part was unlearning 30 years of being told that kitchen scraps were waste. In Portland, Oregon, a community garden serving 48 member families launched a collective kitchen scrap program 3 seasons ago. Members bring their weekly scraps in sealed containers when they come to tend their plots. The material goes into a centrally managed hot compost system and is distributed as finished compost to all members at the start of each season. In 3 seasons, the garden has eliminated its entire purchased compost and fertilizer budget, previously running at approximately $800 per year. Soil test averages across all 48 plots show consistent improvement in organic matter, nitrogen availability, and microbial diversity. The garden coordinator told me something that has stayed with me. She said the members who were most skeptical at the start, the ones who said kitchen scraps could not possibly replace purchased fertilizer, are now the most protective of the program. She said once they saw their soil test results, once they weighed their harvests, the skepticism disappeared completely. She said, science has a way of doing that when you are willing to run the experiment. Here is what 80 million tons of discarded kitchen waste actually means. It means that American households are paying to haul away the mineral equivalent of billions of dollars in fertilizer every single year, and then paying again to purchase synthetic replacements from an industry that was built specifically to profit from that exchange. It means that Dr. Firman Bear documented a free, complete, sufficient fertilizer system in 1942, and that system was retired not because it stopped working, but because it stopped being profitable for the people who needed it to disappear. It means that the $200 billion fertilizer industry and your kitchen trash bin are in direct competition. And for 80 years, the industry has been winning, not because their product is better, but because they controlled the education system that convinced you their product was necessary. This week, starting with the scraps from tonight's dinner, nothing from your kitchen goes into the trash bag. The coffee grounds go around your plants or into a compost pile. The vegetable peels go into a trench or a jar of water. The eggshells go into a bowl on the counter. The wood ash from the fireplace goes into a bucket by the back door. 4 materials, 0 cost. The same system that fed 20 million American gardens during the nation's greatest crisis, before the industry that replaced it existed. Here at Forbidden Survival, we do not ask you to trust us. We ask you to run the experiment, collect your kitchen waste for 1 month. Apply it using any one of the 4 methods in this video. Test your soil at the start and end of your growing season. Let the numbers tell you what the garden center will never put on a label. If this changed the way you looked at your trash can tonight, leave a comment. Tell me which method you are starting with. I read every single one. And if you are building the kind of garden that does not need a store, subscribe to Forbidden Survival. The $200 billion fertilizer industry was built on one idea, that you need them. You never did. The proof has been sitting in your kitchen trash the whole time. Subscribe to Forbidden Result and never throw that away again.